Hello, everyone. Welcome at our MBA Speaker Series. I'm Maja Golf-Papez, and I'm MBA Deputy Director of the Sussex MBA program. I'm really happy to see all of you here. So we are meeting today for the first time in this academic year to continue with our exciting MBA Speaker Series, which represents a curation of talks that delve deeply into emerging issues which affect business and society and provide an opportunity to hear the personal career journeys and lessons learned of inspiring business leaders. We are today in the company of three inspiring business leaders, namely Bryson Butler, Sarah Smith, and Manoj Subramanian. All three are so they're Sussex MBA alumni. Interesting story is that we just discussed that basically we have Sarah who graduated her MBA before COVID. Then we have Bryson who was doing it, who was in the program during the COVID, and Manoj who just recently graduated, and he might be able to tell you his story from the perspective of how it is to do dissertation post-COVID times, if we can call current times post-COVID times. So just to introduce very briefly our exciting panel. So Bryson is currently doing like on an entrepreneurial journey. He is managing short-term holiday properties across the Sussex area. But one of the first job opportunities that he took after his MBA was working in the sponsorship and partnership department for one of the world leaders in the motorsport industry, which is the Goodwood Group. We have Sarah Smith, who is the new talent manager at Cook Trading. This is a manufacturer and retailer of high-end frozen ready meals and a founding member of the B Corp movement in the UK. After completing her MBA at Sussex in 2020, Sarah has her dream job in the raw talent team, recruiting and training people with various barriers to employment, such as convictions and mental health challenges. And we have Manoj, who has, prior to joining Sussex MBA program, gathered 15 years of work experience as a marine engineer on board ship, and recently graduated from Sussex and just started his new job as a lead, lead providing subject matter expertise on ballast water, sewage, grey water, and noise level on board ships in the International Chamber of Shipping. So each of these exciting panelists will now have 10 minutes to reflect on our topic, which relates on how their MBA dissertation, working on the MBA dissertation, led to exciting professional and personal growth-related opportunities. And after that, we will open the floor for questions. So we will be starting with Bryson. Bryson, the floor is yours.
Great to meet everybody. One of the things that we're really looking to discuss today is, our dissertation and how that prepared for us post-graduation, and also how that applies to our career now. In typical Bryson fashion, I'm going to do it the inverse way. I never seem to do it the way that they're meant to do things, and I have a reason for that. Before I kind of get into all that, I do want to kind of give you a quick story that kind of relates the two things. So I'm originally from the United States, if you can't tell from the accent. I'm originally from the state of Arkansas. It's a very, very small state. We are near Texas, near Mississippi. We're known as the natural state. Now, what that means is that Arkansas is known for their natural qualities, so the mountains, the rivers. So naturally, my family were fishermen. My grandfather was a professional fisherman, and I grew up myself fishing. And I'm not sure here how many people here have any experience fishing or have any associations to fishing, but it's such a crucial part of our life there. And I still remember vividly a story about when I was about 6 to 8 years old. I was with my grandfather. It was evening time. We went out to the local lake to go fishing. It was an overcast day, cloudy, quite cold. And we're sitting there with our rod and reel in our hand with the lure in the water, and it starts to rain. Now, you need to understand something about my grandfather. My grandfather was a very, very big man, 6'6", about 150 kilos. To me, he was a real life hero. I thought he was a Marvel action hero. So anything he said, I just took to heart. And I still remember sitting there with my rod and reel, with my lure in the water, and it starts to rain. And I look at him and I say, "Papa, can we please go in?" And he looked at me and he says, "Son, water's already wet. It doesn't bother the fish at all." And eventually we get through the day and we didn't catch anything. I get so irritated. I'm wet, I'm cold. And I complain about it. He goes, and in the end, he said something that really stuck with me. And I think this is something that stuck with me even post the dissertation. And he said, "Son, that's why we call it fishing and not catching." And I think that's something that's really, really important to understand and know about your dissertation. Now, throughout your dissertation process, you're going to be given all the tools and all the instructions that you're going to need to be able to execute your job, right? And then at the end, you'll also be able to receive a diploma. Now, in Arkansas and in the United States, to be able to fish, you need a fishing license. And then in that same way, in that same breath, that diploma acts as a fishing license. It doesn't guarantee you any type of fish. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to go out and land this amazing, amazing fish, just as much as that dissertation and that diploma is going to guarantee you that you are going to land this amazing, amazing job afterward. Now, what it does, again, it provides you the tools and provides you the accreditation. And at the end of the day, it's up to you to be able to go out and to be able to land that type of fish, or in this case, a job. And I think that's quite important to understand, because I think as someone who came here internationally, and I know quite a few of my cohorts, I would say 90% of my cohorts came here internationally. And then the reality is, it is a bit of a struggle out there for an international student to find a job. Some of my cohorts, it took up to a year, and that's the reality of it all sometimes. But at the same time, I'd very much remind people that the tools that you are given, if you use them, will allow you to be successful in your endeavors of job hunting. For me, I was very, very fortunate. I had always dreamt of working in the professional sports industry. 2 months prior to my dissertation, as Maja said, I was able to land a role within sponsorship and partnership with Goodwood Group. Now, while it all sounds amazing, I must say, and I must be very transparent, that although it was this amazing opportunity, I had to humble myself when I went for this job, because I was in a brand new industry. I was also in a world in a new country that I was not experienced in. So whereas maybe before the MBA dissertation in the United States, I was at this particular level, I was at this particular management level. If I'm going to switch to a new industry, I realized I had to maybe take another step down and maybe go at a different entry level than before. I think it's very similar to the technique of fishing, right? Sometimes you go to a spot and it doesn't always work. You have to move around. You have to be adjustable. You have to be flexible. And again, yes, you may have all these tools, which are amazing, and we will absolutely use them. But at the end of the day, it really is up to you, for you to determine whether or not you're going to be successful or not. It's not up to the university; it's up to you. Now, on the flip side, now my wife and I we have started a holiday let management company, as Maja alluded to. It's going on extremely well. At the beginning of this year, we had started with 2 properties. Now we are looking at to be managing upwards of 20 properties by the end of the season. And what we recognize by doing this comparative analysis during my MBA class is actually the local Sussex area. The competition is quite far behind what we were doing previously in another role. And again, that's a bit of another story. But through these tools that we were given, we were able to recognize an opportunity. And through that opportunity, we've been able to capitalize. So, it's throughout this process and throughout this dissertation, you're going to be challenged. You are going to be more so, I think, challenged in the way you believe that a leader of management ought to be. right? There's a difference the way things ought to be and the way things should be and can be. And I say be very open to it. And I think for me, that's my brief experience, but I'm going to pass it on to the second guest speaker, but I look forward to speaking to anybody who has any more questions afterwards.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. And as you can tell from my accent, a bit like Bryson, although I'm not originally from the US, I lived there for 17 years during most of my childhood and actually went to university in California. And when I finished, I came over to the UK to work and originally had planned to work here for 2 years and then to go back to the USA to do an MBA. And my career at the time took over initially in the construction industry and later in the conference industry. And I ended up putting the MBA to one side and working. And at the time, particularly in the conference industry, it was very cutthroat, very, very commercially driven. And at that time, CSR was just not even mentioned. It wasn't a consideration. Everything in the companies that I worked for was focused on profit, 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 with little regard to people or anything else. And I left that industry many years ago to have a family. And in the time that I took off raising my family and doing some consultancy work and voluntary work, I realized that that wasn't the way that I felt that life should be and that business should be. And through just being a customer, I found the company Cook, who manufacture and retail posh frozen food, they call it. And it's food cooked like you made at home, like you make yourself at home. And the company had and continues to have really clever marketing where they really get to know their customers, and it's really interesting. And even when I wasn't buying things, you know, I would read their catalogs when they came and later the emails and things when they came, and just had a really nice relationship with customers. And I was always really intrigued about the company. And in about 2015, they became what's called a B Corporation, which some of you may know about, others may not. But it's basically an organization of businesses that are certified who believe that in addition to making a profit, that businesses should be a force for good and acting for all stakeholders. So for the people, the local communities, society in general, looking after the planet, as well as shareholders. And through Cook and becoming aware of this movement, I became fascinated that this was much more aligned with what I felt business should be doing. And when the idea of doing the MBA came up for me again after many years, I thought, actually, this is something that I'd really like to study and get to learn more about and really find, is this possible? Can it really work in this way that they're promoting? And in particular, as I said, I was interested in Cook, having been a customer and seeing the good things that they seem to be doing as part of being a profit-making business, but also trying to be good for people and the planet. So my MBA ended up being, my dissertation ended up being a case study on successfully managing the paradox of being a B Corporation, focused on that triple bottom line and using Cook as a case study. So in essence, my goal at the end of the MBA was to ideally get a job with Cook, or possibly with B Lab UK, who manage the B Corporation movement in the UK, or indeed with another B Corporation, to get that sense of, is it really possible to do what the B Corp movement was setting out to do? So my decision to do a case study was that it would give me the opportunity to really do in-depth research into this particular company. And it gave me the opportunity, although Maya said that I was not COVID, I was actually not COVID for about the first 3 quarters of my MBA, but then COVID hit in March 2020. And essentially I did do most of my research on Zoom, in fact, never having heard of anything like that before. But I think that proved really useful, because I think one of the tools in a dissertation, if you are doing interviews, being able to connect on Zoom gives you the opportunity to interview a lot more people. And I had the opportunity to interview 15 people in Cook. And amazingly, that included the founder, my current manager at Cook, the people director, and many other people across the business. Zaira here was my dissertation supervisor, and as she wisely but told me at the time, but I ignored, 15 people was too many, so I definitely wouldn't do that. But for me personally, it was very, very interesting to have the opportunity to interview these people. And I was doing qualitative research and basically conducted formal open-ended interviews with these people. And it gave me such tremendous insight into what Cook was about and how they were working. And as part of that process of interviewing them, I then connected with many of them on LinkedIn. And as a result of that, I became aware of the role that I'm in now through my current manager who I connected with. And by having done my dissertation research in Cook, it just gave me a massive step up when I got in touch with her to say, hey, remember me? A year ago, I did an interview with you for my dissertation, and I'd really love to apply for this job. So I'd already met her, which was tremendous in terms of getting that opportunity to get an interview, because my CV doesn't necessarily read as someone who might be applying for that particular role. I'd worked in conferencing, I'd worked in construction. Although I'd had experience doing training and things in relation to that, my CV didn't read, hey, hire me to hire these people with barriers to employment. But because I'd done the dissertation on Cook and had a connection with my now manager, it got me an in that I don't think that I would have had without doing my particular dissertation. So that by having done the in-depth case studies, when I went to my interview, I knew Cook inside out. I probably know Cook better than most people who work at Cook, even for 10 or 15 years know Cook, because I spoke to people at all levels across, the different retail outlets, people from up north, people down south, and in many areas of business. So when in my interview, I was able to speak in Cook language. I have a deep understanding of the Cook values and culture in a way, again, that unless people have been there for a long time, they tend not to have. And this was able to shine through in my interview. I think I was interviewed by my current manager, Annie, who I had interviewed. And then in my second interview, I was interviewed by another person from the people team who I'd never met. And I think she was literally blown away by how much I knew about Cook, because it was so in depth that you could just see her sitting there like, I want her working here. And that was a tremendous feeling in the interview as well, because often you go in feeling very nervous, but when you have so much knowledge, it's a lot easier to face an interview in that sense. And even today, the benefit of that, when I started work, it's almost exact, a year ago next Tuesday that I started at Cook. On day one, I knew people. I saw the founder on day one and was able to say, hello, remember me? I interviewed you for my dissertation. Various other people. I think I've now met almost all but two of them in person. But it meant that when I started, I could just hit the ground running because I knew so much. And I think they were really impressed because in those first few weeks, I didn't have that early learning stage of trying to find out about the company and think how people fit in. I'd meet people who I hadn't interviewed, but because my interviewees had spoken about them, I thought, oh yeah, I know you. You're the chief creative officer. You're the COO. I probably know inner secrets about them that they don't even realize because they've been revealed by my interviewees. And I certainly think I know more about the founder in particular, who was very open and honest with me, who I suspect told me things that most employees don't know. So it's been really interesting having done this case study dissertation to have that opportunity in that way. And in terms of doing the dissertation as well, I think, again, my background was very different. And I think the interview skills in particular that I learned is doing this dissertation have proved really useful in my current role because, as Maya said, part of my role is employing people with barriers to employment. And as part of that, we need to do really in-depth, it's not called an interview, we call it a chat, but we need to chat with them to really get the essence of who they are they ready for work, what issues might they need help with if they were to come into work. And I think having the listening skills and the interview skills that I developed doing the dissertation were very helpful, to me now to be able to do that with these people in a relaxed way that's, again, it's a structured questionnaire, but we also need to use the open-ended questions and kind of dig deeper and really get to the bottom of what's making them tick and, how they might be able to cope and work and how we might need to support them in that. So that's been very helpful. And the other thing that I found particularly useful during the dissertation is I have a tendency to be very wordy, both when I speak and when I write. And I think when I did the initial draft of my dissertation, it was more than 2,000 words too long. And the process of having to really get to the meat of it and get to what was really important was challenging. But I think that served me well in work, because again, in things that we do at Cook, it's very helpful now that I have that ability that I learned to really pare things down and think, what is the essence that I'm trying to get across? And in fact, in preparing for this, I reread my dissertation for the first time in 2 years. And I can certainly see how, you know, thinking back to those early drafts to how it ended up, how beneficial that process of kind of being forced to focus and do what you need to do to come up with a top quality dissertation was helpful to me. But I think the biggest challenge in actually doing this particular dissertation was how to approach Cook to get this case study, because I was desperate, as I will know, to use Cook as my case study. And obviously you could just write and introduce yourself and send a letter and ask, but I didn't feel in this case that that was necessarily going to work. So I'm lucky in that Cook is fairly local to here. So I literally told everyone I knew who I might think have any connection to Cook that I wanted to use Cook as a case study a few months before we were really even working on the dissertation. And eventually someone said to me, oh, Ed Perry's doing a talk at his old school in Tunbridge. You should go to that. Well, it was meant to be for students and parents and former parents, of which I am none. So I did try and sneak in a bit unsuccessfully beforehand, and they caught me out. So I had to get my friend to come with me. But literally, I went to this talk with Ed, and it was on the 10th of March, 2020, just as COVID was about to hit and lockdown was going to happen, and took the opportunity to demonstrate my knowledge by asking a suitable question during the question and answer period. And then afterwards, going to speak to him and saying, hey, I'm the person who asked you about B Corp, etc. And saying, would you consider this? And I, you know, particularly at that time, I think if I'd applied by letter, I'm not sure that he would have said yes. But because he was standing in front of me and I was asking, and I was able to demonstrate my knowledge of Cook and the B Corp movement, you know, he said, yeah, I'm sure we can find a way to make that work, which was just music to my ears, and indeed did make it work. And so if you are thinking about doing a case study, particularly on just one firm, I'd really recommend trying to find a personal way to get, you know, the permission to do that, because I think whilst you might be lucky writing a letter and contacting people, I think if you can really get to someone senior, as I had the top man basically, get to someone senior, you know, or with suitable influence, and try and really make it personal if possible, so that you can get them to agree by demonstrating your genuine interest and knowledge. So for me, so I did the dissertation on Cook. It was an amazing experience. And the next step was to try and get work. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I had three targets: Cook, the B Lab UK, or another B Corp. And there were no positions at Cook that would be suitable when I first finished my dissertation. So that was sort of put to one side, but there was an opportunity to apply for B Lab. I got reasonably far in the process with that. I didn't end up getting offered that job, but again, I think having done the dissertation on Cook and on B Corp, I was able to demonstrate real knowledge of the B Corp movement and B Corp itself. And in fact, another thing that I would recommend is throughout, because I had a very clear interest, I used many of my different assignments for the modules to do my B Corp. So I did my managing people one on servant leaders, because many B Corp leaders tend to be servant type leaders. I did my accountancy project on Cook. I did my strategy paper on B Corp. And I think I did another one. Oh, even in my entrepreneurship, the company I developed the entrepreneurship was a B Corp potentially. So again, just looking at it from that side of things. So I'd highly recommend that if you have a really clear sort of mission with your dissertation. But in essence, so I didn't get the job with B Lab, but again, it was helpful with the interview. And then when I saw the LinkedIn post, you know, for Cook, it was wonderful. So I didn't apply for very many jobs, but you know, the two that I did apply for that were really right for me, it worked out well. And I think that's down to my dissertation. And now, I'm super privileged because I have the most amazing job that's like a dream come true for me, where, sorry, my cats are fighting in the background, where, I work in what's called the raw talent team, where we employ people with convictions, homelessness, barriers to employment. And Cook as a company, genuinely want to support people in this way. And we do specialized training. And this literally, the last 2 weeks, I've spent working inside Rochester Prison, working with a group of 9 people who are in prison but due to be released in the next 3 months, who, have very few prospects in front of them, but hopefully some of them, after the experience they've had in the last 2 weeks, will be working for Cook. And it was a demonstration of that, of Cook really doing what my dissertation showed that they are doing, that they are prepared to put their money where their mouth is, basically, and actually spend, nobody paid us to go in there. Cook provided the 2 weeks training, and we may get no employees from this cohort, but the fact that they're prepared to do it, for me, it's such a privilege and such an opportunity. And without my dissertation, I just don't think that would have been possible. So thank you, Sussex, for that.
It is an honor to be here and share my dissertation experience. I would like to start with a disclaimer. My presentation is structured with references to dissertations, since the topic relates to dissertation. However, I'm very grateful to all my module professors who helped me refine my business idea for my initial dissertation. You will come to know as the presentation goes along. Coming to my first slide. So my dissertation is in 3 parts. In the first part of my presentation, I will outline my business idea, my initial dissertation, and why I had to change my dissertation topic. Next, I will discuss about my final dissertation and research questions. In conclusion, I will explain what I have taken away from my dissertation, as well as how my dissertation has helped me in getting my job that I'm currently now. So just to give an overview of my initial business idea, I took the problem of beginners drop out in sports and leisure. When the challenge level is not optimal, the player loses interest, the beginner loses interest, and he drops out of the sport, to be concise. The solution that I was thinking was most of the beginners, all kids are beginners. So focusing on the kids, I would wanted to do something in the lines of magic show, where they're all engrossed and looking at their learning experience is much more far better, and the chances of dropping out is very low. In that process, I was developing a new teaching technique with cartoon characters, animals, and music. And for adults, I was looking some other techniques. This business idea was selected for phase 2 of Startup Sussex Award. So there was the top 6 ideas at Sussex at the time, and it was a very big step for me, since I was it gave me a lot of encouragement, and then I could easily recruited a co-founder from Microsoft to work for free, as I will share more in my coming slides. So the initial idea of my dissertation, I started really early, as Zaira multiple times she mentioned that think about your dissertation as early as possible, and I was determined to take this business idea as my dissertation. My general overview was the literature review research started with a broad overview of beginner sports coaching, and narrowed to highlight some of the gaps about challenges and suggested further improvements by concluding the literature review. In my discussion, I aim to start narrow again. by explaining how technology can improve beginners' coaching experience, and then conclude in a broad way by demonstrating how technology enhanced coaching can disrupt the whole beginner coaching industry. So this was the time when my initial idea of magic show transformed to something I was thinking in the lines of technology. When I was forming the research questions for my dissertation, I thought that what is the next step? So that research question actually propelled me to think about the transition towards technology. So that was in January 2022. I was thinking about the next steps of my business idea. So this is my research question. So whether usage of technology in sports can help in beginner coaching to reduce the dropout in sports and leisure. So I'm thankful to Josh Seapple, who was my dissertation supervisor. He used to ask me a lot of questions, and in thinking, I didn't have any ready-made answer, but in thinking of how to answer him, I came up with these research questions, and then I decided, okay, something in the lines of technology should be there because it was the future trend. To get aligned with the future trends of digitalization and individualization, I got to come up with something. So we developed this product for free. I don't have much money to so I developed this product for free. I got a co-founder from Microsoft and a data analyst from Microsoft as well. Very passionate because of my idea what we could have. So what this does is a real-time video analysis technology. So this is my co-founder's daughter. So what happens is she's doing an posture here. It analyzes the knee position, elbow position. So this can be for tennis. This can be for all sports. I was thinking on the lines, and then it immediately gives you results. So this knee could have been bent more. If you are bent more, and I can come up with results here saying that, okay, you can achieve this, and so and so. So we did this in a period of 3 to 4 months time. I was doing my MBA. I was participating in the Startup Sussex Award competition. My wife, in my personal level, she had given birth to our second baby in September 2020. So that was 2021. So my baby was 6 months old. I was going through sleepless nights, and it was a very, very busy period. And still, we somehow managed to achieve this. And then the final product looked like this: the digital sports coaching app with an AI-enabled real-time video analytics, £8 a month, and then revenue streams of thinking about marketplace and conscious and curated marketplace. So this was what we were thinking in the lines. So you might think that how this is my dissertation. Through my dissertation, my aim was not to get more marks, but thinking of how I can achieve something in the real world. So I was more passionate about that. If in that case, if I get more marks, it's okay, I will take that. But my primary goal was to achieve a real product. So this is what I was going through. Every time I go through revision, not only with my dissertation supervisor, with various module professors as well, I come out with something, how I can develop a real product. So after achieving all these things, I decided to change my dissertation topic. So the reason was the major challenge was to go through get an entrepreneur visa. The less I talk about it, it will be better. There is I went through a lot of struggle because I became a half solicitor, and now I can advise. I do advise I give a couple of suggestions to my friends on visa conditions and so that was a major challenge. It was very difficult to get an endorsement and get I'm an international student. To get an entrepreneurial visa was not that easy, and my ambition of settling in the UK was not possible if I don't get an entrepreneurial visa at the time. So, and also, and the other reasons were, I realized that creating a product is one kind of skills, and also, and then doing the operation management and then bringing it to real life, it is another kind of skill, and I have to develop a lot of skills, and I thought that will be a challenge. I realized that through the product development, and then I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people about my product. I didn't shy away, and I did realize that, and that was in the back of my mind as well. Having considered all these options, I have developed new skills. Definitely, to create such a product, I had developed research skills, and I pursued my second career pathway option, which looked a better and easy way than the present one, where I was more passionate. But again, my second career pathway was to get a job based on my professional experience. I was a marine engineer on board ships for 15 years, and since my career pathway changed, it was only natural that again I want to be with my practical goals. My career, I didn't have the passion to pursue this. I gave that product to my co-founder, and she is now doing it for dance, Indian dance, classical dance. So once my topic changed, I had 2 months left to submit my dissertation after changing my topic. Choosing a topic again, I had to now think about what kind of job as a marine engineer I will be, I'm likely to get. So also I was, as destiny will have, I got a consultancy project from University of Sussex on green hydrogen, and I saw some possibilities of green hydrogen in one of my interviews. The topic was what are your plans for a long-term GHG reduction strategy. So I saw some opportunity there, and I chose my topic for dissertation as green hydrogen in the UK, barriers to cost competitiveness. Again, thanks goes to Josh Seapple in refining my thoughts and bringing me to select my topic for dissertation. I researched on optimal hydrogen price, green hydrogen applications, and UK sustainable policy environment, enhancing my knowledge database on that. We arrived at these research questions. What are the barriers for maintenance for cost competitiveness in the production and usage of green hydrogen in the UK? What are the advantages for using a cost competitiveness strategy for the generation of green hydrogen in the UK? What are the issues associated with the cost competitive strategy implementation for the generation of green hydrogen in the UK? And with these research questions, I have surely enhanced great knowledge for a future energy topic. Nobody is an expert in this future energy, and anybody can become a quick expert, if I can rephrase those what I have said. So I could feel that I had an head start in these topics. If somebody engages with me in these topics, I could see I had some fundamental knowledge I've gained through my dissertation research. So key takeaways is I developed through my initial dissertation, I have developed through very good research skills, my research and presentation skills as well. Through my dissertation, my initial job, I was not exposed to those areas, and there was large scope of improvement in those areas, and I did develop those through my initial dissertation. And my focus was not on always on grades, but on gaining knowledge and skills to obtain the job of my choice. In my final dissertation, as I've said, I gained foundational knowledge and enabling me to have the building blocks for the future knowledge growth as well. I was able to use some of my research, most importantly in my job interview, and I suppose that was one of the key reasons for me to get the job that I'm at the right now. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Manoj, for your perspective. It is really great to hear three different perspectives of how MBA dissertation, both its content and the process preparing it, was influenced by and influenced your personal and professional development.